Recording. Okay. Let's get this in focus. Okay, I asked you about the Hudson scales of 5 questions. Anybody here who has not done your 5 questions yet?
Does that sound?
You've not yet?
Yeah.
By when will you do
I
yours?
said that I will jot them.
Okay, so,
No, not first day.
alright, you don't have a broken promise.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Collages done? Anybody not?
What about co-leader?
What?
Co-leader.
Okay, well, who wants to be a co-leader? Anybody want to be a co-leader?
Oh, no.
Huh? You do?
No.
Alright, I'm going to think about it. We're going to cover some material, see if we can't cover some material. Inquiry. So the integrity's in, yeah? Does there anybody have any broken promises you want to clean up about being in the course? Okay. Anybody want to make any promises? Huh? Can you come in closer? Yeah. Alright. So there's the course experiments, yes? Remember the judging and evaluating and setting that aside? Has anyone not done that? You've all done that that's sitting here? Wow. And do you continue to do it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So here's some questions that go in your inquiry part of your notebook, okay? And they're up here, right? Performance is correlated to occurring. How does this course need to occur for you such that, now you may have already written this one down because we said this before, but it's up there again. How does this course need to occur for you such that what is asked, that's me, I ask me, and maybe, and you know, you do as I'm asking too, is done as it should be done in the time requested, and you're asking me, what else can I do, given the promise of the course and what you have at stake in the course. Are you paying attention?
Yes.
Okay, I'm watching you. This group is small enough I can watch you. You can't escape me in this course. 300 people can. Okay, so can you achieve what you want? Things and ways of being in an environment where others don't get what they want. I'm not asking you to answer that question. I'm asking you to inquire into that. Can you? Can you? You can? Yeah. And then, so what's the quality of life like? When you have an abundance in your life and someone else doesn't. Is that really possible? I mean, abundance is a way of being, not stuff that you have. Of course, people have lots of stuff, and some people don't have much stuff. Okay? But just inquire into that. If you get circumstance Y just as desired, and we talked about this yesterday, there's the circumstances that you wanted. It used to be over here on the board. It used to be up there. The circumstance that you wanted, which are Y, just as you desire, then you'll be experiencing X, right? One of these things over here, satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, power, yeah? Y comes from an inherited discourse in the past. What if you start with being X and bring that to your projects with elements of contribution? We covered that yesterday. This is just an inquiry to write down. Are you writing down these inquiries? It doesn't look like you are. Can you have a life of abundance while everyone around you suffers? What will you have around you? What will you have around you? What will life be like if around you listen to everyone as a contribution, what would life be like if you listen for everyone around you as a contribution? Okay. So this is, so we're going to have a, this is the last class until next Tuesday. Yeah? Okay, so this is your class experiment while you're gone. Are you all leaving town and you're not going to be around, or who's gonna really use the time to catch up and study like you're supposed to? You know? Okay, just check. Who's gonna use the time to check out and go on vacation?
What?
It will be just like
You'll be checking out and going on vacation too.
Yes.
Okay.
half the week to study and half the week to travel.
What? Half study and half travel? Where are you traveling?
To cities in Ukraine which I haven't been.
A city in Ukraine you haven't been. Cool. Okay. So before next class, do you know how we worked with Alexei's collage? Right? We saw what he was up to in terms of success. And at first it looks like it was success for him. Then as you looked, it was success for people. So my request is that you get a partner and you do that experiment that we did with Alexei. Okay? Now, could you get in a partner who's not here? Could everybody get in a partner who's not here and include them, like one of these people here? Could you do that? Is that is that doable? Are you not sufficiently related and you don't know them enough?
Okay, I know some.
Okay, so you could take one. Anybody else?
I
I can
know.
take Adam.
I know
Okay.
Robin.
Okay, so that's 3 that aren't here. Anybody else can take someone that's not here. You can go look at the name tags.
Okay.
They're right there.
You
But
can
tell
take-
us who you're taking so nobody else takes them.
She's our neighbor.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I know only her, so one of us.
Okay, well, the 3 of you could actually work together. That's fine. The
Okay.
3 of you could work together. Okay? Do you know any? Okay, you don't know. Who else doesn't know anyone and you don't? So you 2 guys. Like you know each other already, and we've done all this work with you. Okay, well, you do the work with him that I did with you.
Which one?
Там пропише.
This collage, yeah. Yeah, you know the work that we did with you with your collage
Yes.
and the success thing? You'll do that with him. Okay?
Okay.
The other people that aren't here will have to get the assignment from listening to the video
Mhm.
and pick a partner or someone to do that work with. All right.
So what exactly we should do? We should take this person, look at their collages, and
The same thing that we did with Alexei.
okay,
If you're unclear about it, look at
look at the video.
the video.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 3 movies to schedule. When can we do that and where? Do you have an idea?
Yes, any evening. We can take any
Any evening?
Yes. According just to our schedules.
Okay, and then can we go to that library that you...
Yes, yes, yes. yes.
Would you want to take me and show me where the library is,
Yes.
and we can talk to them and get some times that are available?
Okay.
It works.
Huh? Well, would you want to do it just like right after class sometime, or in the evening?
Mhm.
I mean, we can,
No,
as far as we can do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday night.
Yes, for that.
But
See,
it
the
works-
library works until 7 p.m. I think.
School libraries?
6:30.
Right.
Yes,
Yes,
American
library.
yes.
But I know that on Friday they have English club and
We can go after this class and talk. Then
We'll find out.
Then discuss.
Or we can just go to some cafe or something like that.
What?
No, but
Living room.
no. We after this class we can.
So we need to.
Alright, so alright. Okay, now. So when I did, there's some really great stuff about leadership in this movie, but you normally don't look at movies in the way that we're going to look at the movie. We're going to look at the movie kind of like on the court instead of in the stands. Instead of theory, we're actually going to map our lives onto the lives of the people that are in the movies and see what we can see from that. We're going to start mapping some leadership distinctions. So, you know, there's this Ben Wiki in Transformers, Dark of the Moon, right? He takes on these Transformers people, but there was kind of the way he was before he took them on. And Sigourney Weaver, before she took on the aliens, she was, you know, catatonic, curled up in a corner, helpless. And then she took on somebody asked her to take something on, and she actually became a different person who was much more powerful than do you remember the sergeant who would do the pull-ups, and you know, she was this muscular chick, and I mean, in the face of the alien, you know, this Sigourney was unstoppable, and she wasn't some big muscular chick. So we're gonna play with that theme.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So anything you want to say? Anybody? Anything? We're going to start the course. This is the course materials. We've actually been doing the course, and you'll see we've actually covered a lot of stuff that's already in the course. So these are the inventors: Werner Erhard, Michael Jensen, Steve Zaffron, Kerry Granger, and Jerry Echeverria. This is from my course that I did at the University of British Columbia, and it was taught in the Entrepreneurship School at the University of British Columbia. We're going to use the same text materials. Now you can distribute this document freely, but don't just post the PDF file. Go give people this link, and they can go to it, because this is changing all the time. In 6 months, this will be updated and revised, and there will be more material added to it, okay? Now, do you know what an abstract, this is a paper, and it's a slide deck presentation and a textbook all at the same time. And you know, a paper has an abstract. You know that? And this is the abstract. We're not going to go over the whole abstract, but I want you to know that it's there, right? And here's some pre-course readings that I wished you would have done, but you didn't. You can always go back and do it. Now here's this they're talking here about ontology. We've been doing ontology here on the board. Ontology is the art and science of being. You guys have started to master this art and science of being by being successful and contributing that. So you've already started to take ground in this area. Now we're going to talk in depth about the elements. There's 3 elements. There's the 4 foundational factors: integrity, authenticity, being committed to something bigger, being cause and the matter. In fact, I have this right here. Here's the 3 elements. The first is the 4 foundational factors, the contextual framework, and constraints. We've actually done some work on constraints already. Looking good is a constraint. So here's the contextual framework, we'll get into this. The underlying theory of the course, element 3, the constraints. Here's some acknowledgments, notes to the reader. Here's all the table of contents so we can find things. Does that show up? Yeah. All right. So there's the instructors, the same people you saw before. And here's some information about who these instructors are. Can you read this up here?
Yes.
Werner Erhard, intellectual entrepreneur. A lot of this that I'm telling you comes from Werner Erhard. And Michael Jensen, his partner in this Erhard-Jensen Ontological Phenomenological Institute that they are forming, and the thrust is to actually have, you know how you have biology and history and the subjects? The intention is to have ontology, this method of learning ontology, phenomenology in a school as a department. You notice already that you don't learn, you aren't learning in a traditional way, right? This is not like anything you've ever done before, is it? And we're going to keep doing it. We're taking the theory and you're on the court with it. Are you doing okay? Is this tough for you?
No.
Okay. Some people like, you see something printing and, it reminds them of an instructor, and before you know it, you're in 3rd grade, and you know how you were in 3rd grade when the teacher's up there, right? This kind of past gets in people's future, and they
I'm listening intently.
That's all right. It's okay. All right, so then there's Stephen Saffron. Carrie Granger did this original work by Werner Erhard called Landmark Forum. And she was in the Air Force Academy. She was an instructor, Center for Character and Leadership Development. And she was out in the field. And what she got from leadership came from the Landmark education. So she went to Werner and said, Werner, you've got to put this in leadership so I can lead this, and the cadets can get what I got. Because what they're doing at the Air Force Academy hadn't been working as well as this course. So this is how come the leadership course is because Carrie asked Werner to do it, and so he did. And so this is where some of the courses have been led before, right? And this, all right, the relationship, okay. So this could be interesting. Some of you, you're interested in going into business for yourselves? Yes? So that's called entrepreneurship, yes? So, as you may have noticed, this leadership course is unlike virtually anything else that's done in the area of leadership, education and training. Leadership, education, and training. What we will be doing in this course will be highly relevant and impactful for you in your life, both as an individual and as an entrepreneur. So it's not just for entrepreneurs. While we will not be specifically focusing on the unique challenges of entrepreneurship, we will be focusing on the unique challenges of being a leader in any given situation, which in our view is absolutely critical for being a successful entrepreneur. Including, by the way, being able to lead yourself and being able to successfully create and realize a future that was not predictably going to happen, arguably at the core of entrepreneurship. So, you may be asking yourself, will this course aid me in being a successful entrepreneur, raising capital, running a meeting, leading a team and managing people, developing customers, product development, presenting? The answer to these questions is absolutely yes. Our promise to you is that you will leave this course being a leader and exercising leadership effectively as your natural self-expression. You're getting that? Yeah, very good. And we will not be talking directly about any of the topics on the previous slide. In other words, we aren't going to be talking about that stuff. Oops. All right. How can this statement make sense? You will leave this course being and not knowing. as in being a leader in all aspects of your life, in any situation, regardless of the circumstances. And therefore, this course is designed for anyone who is or wants to be committed to realizing futures that were not predictably going to happen. So, anybody want to say anything about that? It's getting on the mat, right? Yeah. Okay. So there's a design that's used in this course. And the slides are written out, I'm down here, in a precise language. What experience and testing have demonstrated that we must make available in order to deliver on our promise to you. A good deal of thought and testing has gone into the way things are stated. We read and discuss together. Okay, so you've been doing that. I've been letting you read and follow what I've been saying. That's how we do. During the reading, if you do not understand a word that it is used, or the meaning of what is read is not clear to you, or you have a comment or a question about what has been read, we request that you raise your hand immediately. I wonder, can this thing see me sitting there? Well, everybody in this course has this slide deck. So as we go through it, from here on out, when you're watching that, it's probably going to be a good idea to have the slide deck open and going through it there. I doubt if that camera is going to pick up these words. Okay? All right. Getting the full impact. One reason we use this form of presentation is to deal with the following problem. When you or I read a new or counterintuitive idea, it is often the case that after we read all the words in the passage, we have to go back and read it again to get clear to the meaning of what we read. In fact, reading any new material to ourselves, often we are not clear about the meaning of what is said in the beginning of the paragraph until we've read the entire paragraph. This even happens with sentences, where the meaning of the beginning of the sentence is sometimes not clear until we have read the entire sentence. In these cases, the impact of what was in the first few words of a sentence, or the first few sentences in a paragraph, or the first few paragraphs in a section, is diminished. So the advantage of listening to the oral reader, the person reading the material out loud is familiar with what is being presented. As a result, he or she can convey through their voice the meaning of what is being read from the outset, so it is clear right from the beginning. In addition, because the meaning is being conveyed, hearing it as it is meant will help avoid any inadvertent misinterpretation of what is meant by what is stated. Some of us have had the experience of listening to an author reading from his or her own writing and know that that experience is often much richer than when we have read the same thing to ourselves.
What does it mean?
Yes. Am I going too fast for anybody?
Inventory, this interpretation.
Where?
Inventory.
What line?
Before misinterpretation.
Where?
Misinterpretation, the word.
Okay.
And before that, inadvertent.
Here?
Upper.
Here. Inadvertent
Yeah.
misinterpretation.
Misinterpretation, yeah. And before that word?
Conveyed?
No. Inadvertent.
In
what convey means
Left.
Any?
Yes, it did. No, right.
We'll have the word inadvertent. Inadvertent.
Three, two words left.
Two words.
So
So,
one word. Yes, this.
inadvertent.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said there was another one. Inadvertent is like accidentally, not on purpose. Inadvertently, without realizing. You could use the word accidental there, but this is a little more richer word for professional writing. Hearing, seeing, and repetition. Moreover, because as the words are read out loud, you will be reading the words words to yourself. What is said comes into you through two senses, hearing and seeing. The combination of being able to read when the meaning is clear from the beginning and the use of two senses results in a clarity and impact that's not available when reading something challenging for the first time by yourself. In our presentation, we will also intentionally employ a certain amount of repetition. We do so because this course proceeds and you master later material. Reviewing what we covered earlier deepens the meaning and impact of the earlier material. Got that? 40% increase in comprehension. So doing it this way, you will comprehend more. Okay? Here's ratings from participants. I'm not going to go over through that. So we are contributing to a new science of leadership. We intend what is in the course to contribute to research on the development of a new science of leadership. We discuss this in some detail in our chapter in this book. So in addition to the contribution it makes for our students, we also use our presentation method because it makes the content of the course readily available for others to research, experiment with, improve on, and makes it available to be taught and innovated from as part of the curriculum in universities throughout the world. This presentation method allows others who will be teaching the course to use these slides to both master the material and convey it effectively to their students. Anything about that? So you're good with all that, huh? All right, this is where to sit in the room, who is in the room, right, all the wonderful people that are in the room. In this course here, it says in your pre-course assignment, we asked you to memorize several items. With regard to one, we made an error. Requesting you to state and memorize 3 of the 4 aspects of the contextual framework with nothing left out is something we have come to realize is nearly impossible to accomplish given what you've been exposed to at that point. So our next slide, you will see a copy of the assignment, right? So they sent out this assignment, and I called up the instructor, and I said, can I make a counter offer? It's like, this is a little bit much, and he said, no, do it. So then later on in the course, I was the person that they are talking about here, because it's like, you're for real? You want me to do this? So this was the assignment. We request that you come to class and being able to state the following edited statements, all right? A contextual framework for leader and leadership that, when mastered, creates leader and leadership as a context that gives you being, the being and actions of being a leader, and the effective exercise of leadership as your natural self-expression. Okay, I'm not going to go through this. This is pretty tough. And I have it diagrammed in a sentence, if you want to see. That was my idea of how to memorize it. Did you do diagramming where you put the subject and the verb and the direct object and then, right? I did that for this, so I could get my head around it, and I'll share it with you. We're going to, as we go through the course, we're going to visit that statement. Say, we apologize for error, but in grappling with it, you probably would have gotten a lot out of it. So there's various segments presented in this course. What you are promised in the course. Okay, read this.
You will have experience whatever personal transformation is required for you to live the course, being who you need to be a leader, and with what it takes to exercise leadership effectively. In other words, we promise that when you leave this course, will you be a leader, and you will be a leader, and you will have what it takes to exercise leadership effectively.
Good job. That's your favorite phrase, right?
You promised.
Huh?
You promised.
I promised, yeah. The purpose of the various segments of the course. There's various segments of the course, and they exist for one and only one purpose, namely,
To live, you be a leader and exercise leadership successfully.
right, everything dealt with in this course and the way it's delivered has been specifically designed and then confirmed as effective in realizing that aim. As we go through various parts of the course, you will at first often not see how a given part relates to the aim of the course, creating leaders. If in a given segment you forget that what is being covered in that segment is being covered because it is required to leave you being a leader and exercising leadership effect successfully, you are likely to fail in mastering that segment. To realize the promise of the course, you must fully engage with each part of the course, not just the ones you find engaging or that you think are relevant. If you create the following context for your participation in this course, and remember it when you find yourself not engaged or thinking that what is being dealt with is not relevant, the following context will empower and enable you to deal with what you must deal with to realize the promise of this course. Everything dealt with in this course, and the way it is delivered, has been specifically designed to leave me exercising leadership effectively, successfully. Thank you. And effectively. All right, so please put your hand up if there's a word you don't know or you can't follow something's being said. We said that already. We now jump to some critical content of the course. Okay, you may remember from your pre-course reading assignment, well you won't because you didn't do it. The limits and the constraints get in the way of your being a leader and exercising leadership effectively as your natural self-expression. We term these constraints ontological, perceptual, and functional constraints. By addressing your ontological constraints, you give yourself the opportunity to get out of your own way so that you can be effective. To support you in doing so, we will begin this aspect of the course right up front by addressing one of the most prevalent and limiting ontological perceptual constraints that for most of us is rarely distinguished. This constraint, if not dealt with powerfully, will surely get in the way of your realizing the promise of the course. This is the constraint. How much time do we have?
For 50 minutes.
50?
Minutes.
50.
Yeah.
50.
Oh. Cool, I want to get through all the way through this already always listening. An ontological, and maybe we can get further, we'll see. See, we're on, can you see slide 70? Is it showing up there? Slide 73 of 1045. But now, there's several hundred slides at least at the end of your evaluation, so we won't need to go through it. So, but if we get to slide 100, we'll be 10% of the way through. All right. Already always listening, an ontological perceptual constraint. Most of us are unaware that our listening is not an empty vessel, not a blank state. We assume that whatever someone says to us, that is, what enters our ears, registers in our listening, lands for us exactly as it was said. While we may hear what is said as it was said, there is something in our listening about which we are unaware that constrains and shapes what registers for us in our listening. What constrains and shapes our listening is a perceptual constraint that we call already always listening. This constraint is already there in our listening before we hear anything, and it's always there in our listening, hence the name already always listening. In short, there is a difference between what we hear, what enters our ears, and what we listen, what lands for us. An example of already always listening. Some people listen to classical music with, I don't like classical music, already in their listening before they even hear a new piece of classical music. Others listen to heavy metal music with, heavy metal music is just noise, already in their listening. In either case, one's ability to hear the music is not interfered with, but their listening of that music is constrained and shaped by their already always listening. If you give some thought to it, you'll be able to find a personal example by identifying someone in your life for whom you all have an already always listening. Before that person even opens their mouth, that already always listening is likely to be some favorable or unfavorable judgment, evaluation, or opinion you have about that person. You're already always listening for that person, whatever it may be, constrains and shapes your listening of whatever that person says. Anything that is already in your listening before anyone says anything to you and is always in your listening is an already always listening that produces a constraint on your perception. It prevents you from recreating for yourself precisely what was said to you. In short, any already always listening interferes with your listening. Using our simple example of an opinion that you have about a given person, if you think about it, it is obvious that your opinion is already there before the person opens their mouth. And until you change that judgment, evaluation, or opinion, it's always there. Moreover, given that whatever that person says is constrained and shaped by your listening to be consistent with that judgment, evaluation, or opinion, it is unlikely that you will change the opinion. The distortion of already always listening extends to anything constituted in language. Note that already always listening constrains and shapes in our listening not only what is said to us and what we overhear, but also constrains and shapes for us what we get out of, what registers for us, what we read or study. In summary, most of us are unaware of the distortion of what is said to us and what we overhear, and the distortion of what we read and study, which distortion is the result of the constraining and shaping effects from our already always listening. While in the rest of this section we will speak about the effects of already always listening, as though we're only talking about what is said to us, what we hear, you now know that it also applies to what you read and study.
What is distortion?
Assertion?
Distortion.
Distortion. I'm surprised there's not a very similar word in Russian. When something is, you look through a piece of glass and the glass isn't perfectly flat, right? It's distorted. Or have you gone into one of those things where you have this mirror and it makes you look really big and then really little? That's a distortion.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Constraining and shaping effect of your already always listening. Your already always listening of what you hear constrains, limits. In your listening, what registers for you of what was said. Huh?
You have read this?
No.
No? About the classical music.
You're already always listening of what you hear constrains, limits. In your listening, what registers for you of what was said, and shapes in your listening what does register to be consistent with your already always listening. For example, if you're already always listening for classical music is I don't like classical music, when you hear a piece of classical music, that already always listening constrains your listening so that you actually miss some of the passages, for sure, at least when your attention is on your evaluation of what you're hearing. And your already always listening will shape the way you listen to what you hear in a way that leaves you once again not liking what you hear. This constraining and shaping, filtering, is there before you hear anything, and it is always there. The constraining effect of your already always listening. With whatever you hear of what is said, your already always listening constrains what lands for you in your listening. For instance, with a person about whom you have a judgment, evaluation, or opinion, anything said by them that is inconsistent with your judgment, evaluation, or opinion will not register for you or will be dismissed in some way. In other words, your already always listening constrains what registers for you. For example, if you have an opinion about conservative politicians, such as they don't empathize with anyone suffering, and a conservative politician says something consistent with empathy for a group suffering, while you will hear what is said, it is unlikely to register for you as empathy. Does that make any sense with this politician, conservative? Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The shaping effect of your already always listening. In addition to constraining your listening so that you don't listen to all that you hear, you're already always listening of a person about whom you have a judgment, evaluation, or opinion also shapes, distorts, what does register in your listening to be consistent with your judgment, evaluation, or opinion of that person. For example, again, if you have an opinion about a conservative politician, such as they don't empathize with people suffering, and a conservative politician says that there is a need to do this or that about a group suffering, you're likely to interpret what they say consistent with your already always listening. For instance, your interpretation could be that this conservative politician is not really concerned with alleviating suffering, rather they are simply playing politics, trying to look like they care. Is this stuff difficult to stay awake?
That's interesting.
Huh?
It's interesting.
What?
It's interesting.
Interesting. So there's a group already always listening. Each nationality, culture, religion, family, and most other tight-knit groups, tight-knit groupings of people have an identifiable already always listening shared by most individuals in the group. While some of us are able to identify the already always listening of various other nationalities, culture, religions, families, and groups, most of us are unaware of the already always listening of our own such grouping. The already always listening of such groups is a powerful ontological perceptual constraint, the awareness of which we almost fail to keep present for ourselves. Yeah.
What means tight-knit groupings?
She's not
Where?
The
She's
first
not
one,
polyamorous.
the first one, tight-knit.
She's not
But you
She's not
said
polyamorous.
Identifiable?
No,
Tight-knit.
She's not
Oh, knit. So, do you know when you make a sweater and you knit the yarn, right? Tight knit would be you would knit it really close together, right? Very connected. So tight knit would mean the group is very tightly connected. All right, do we get that page? All right, consider that who you wound up being is shaped by our listening. By your listening as, for example, an Australian, an Asian, or Canadian. By your listening as either a male or a female. By your listening of your religion. By the listening developed as part of your family is contrasted with other families. By the idiosyncratic listening you developed as an individual, and so on. Consider that who you wound up being is shaped by your listening. This is new now, the way you wound up being. Already always is much more pervasive than just listening. While we've named this ontological perceptual constraint already always listening, the already always category of perceptual constraint goes well beyond one's listening. It is actually you, not just your listening, that is not an empty vessel. That is, you are not only an empty vessel for what you hear, but you are an empty vessel, but you are not an empty vessel for any aspect of your perception of whatever you're dealing with. That is to say, you are not an undistorted mirror of life, observer or discerner of life, or more precisely, You are not an undistorted interpreter of life. So it's as though we walk into that hall of mirrors that distorts your body to look weird ways. And we don't know that we did that. We actually think that the distortion is what we see. The distortion is real. But if you can get that there's a distortion there, it makes you powerful. Okay. Instead of already always listening, we could have named this ontological perceptual constraint, already always interpreting. That is, there are already always interpretations present in the way you wound up being. That function is ontological perceptual constraints that distort what you perceive of what you're dealing with. Already always interpreting, in that the way you wound up being includes interpretations that are already there before you encounter a given situation. And those already there interpretations are always there. Always there in the sense that some of the already there interpretations are present in certain situations with certain people, and some of the already there interpretations are always there all the time. Hence the name already always interpreting. Right? You found that out in doing your experiments. As you're setting aside, there's an already always interpreting that you are of certain people, cultures, right? There's different sects, just whatever you run across. There's an already always, yeah, okay, good. Note that if one is not aware of and responsible for the likelihood of already always interpretations distorting one's perceptions, one will assign false cause to the breakdowns that result from one's way of being and acting being correlated with a distortion of what one is dealing with. Then, of course, one is led to fix that false cause, which results in the running around in circles, dealing with one breakdown after another. While we will say no more about the already always interpreting, everything we say about already always listening applies to already always interpreting. Do you get that?
Yes.
Did you get that? The last part of this up here?
Not exactly.
Did you get that? Okay. Then of course, so because of these distortions, there's distortions, and you don't know that there's a distortion, then it causes you to sometimes try to fix something that's not really there. And it causes you to run around in circles dealing with breakdowns, one after another, that really aren't even there. It's a distortion. Got that? You guys are fast. Okay, because you're already always listening is already there in your listening and always there in your listening. It is like air to the bird and water to the fish. Do you get that? Air to the bird and water to the fish. Cool. We do not notice and therefore do not take into account what is omnipresent, already always there for us. And therefore, your various already always listenings are difficult for you to discern for yourself. They are, so to speak, hidden from you. And what you don't distinguish, that about which you are unaware, runs you. Can you see that? If you are unaware that that happens, it will run you. Capiche? I'm making sure that you're getting this. Are you getting this? Is it going in? Okay. When you're already always listening remains undistinguished, what you hear is undistorted. Distorted. Let me do that again. When you're already always listening remains undistinguished, what you hear is distorted, constrained and shaped by your listening. But you go on unaware of the distortion. You're already always listening runs you in the following way. For each of us, our way of being and our actions are correlated with the way in which what we are dealing with occurs for us. Consequently, when you're undistinguished, already always listening imposes distortions in your listening, your way of being and your actions are correlated with those distortions rather than being correlated with what was actually said. Your way of being and your actions are, so to speak, manipulated by those distortions. But you are unaware of that your being and actions are correlated with a distortion. You're left trying to be effective with a distortion of what was said in the conversation you're dealing with, and being unaware of the distortion imposed by your already always listening, you will ascribe reasons, false cause, for any difficulty you encounter in being effective in dealing with that conversation. When undistinguished, your already always listening runs you to be a leader and to
exercise leadership effectively, and you must distinguish you already always listening, or when you are leading, equal run.
To be a leader and to exercise leadership effectively, you must distinguish your already always listening, or when you are leading, it will run you. A person becomes their already always listening. Many people hear what is said to them with "I know," or "I already know," or "I know better," already in their listening, before they hear almost anything said to them. It is not that they are thinking, "I already know." It is that who they are is, "I already know." The consequences of such already always listening are easy to imagine. The consequences are the same as if you said to someone who is about to say something to you, "I already know. Now, what do you have to say to me?" Or, "I know better. Now, what did you want to say to me?" With such a listening, it's difficult for you to hear anything that might be new for you. Or, if what is said, in fact, enhances what you know, it is unlikely that it will register for you as a contribution. Rather, with an "I know," already always listening, even a contribution is likely to land for you as criticism.
Just like I know who they are is I already know, just like self-confidence or what it is.
It is like stereotypes, knowledge about something, judgments, yes?
What is like stereotype?
Already always listening. Prejudice.
Okay, ask your question again.
Okay, it is not that they are thinking, I already know. It is that who they are is I already know.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that I get what is the difference.
Oh, okay. You aren't thinking "I already know" when somebody is about to say. If you're the kind of person who is a "I already know" kind of person, you aren't thinking that. You are that. When I start talking to you, you are already "I know." I know. What do you tell me? I know. But you're not thinking it's who you are. Does that make sense? Okay. Do you know what I mean? You've tried to tell somebody, you know people in your life that already know, and you go to tell them something and you can't tell them something because they already know. Right? That's who they are. It's already in their listening. You know people like that? Maybe you're one. Yeah. But it's a distortion.
We need we need to not be like that.
No, I don't say that. You just want to notice that it's there. Just notice. Just notice. And it'll stop. If you can see that something's there, it will stop running you.
Okay.
Once you see it's there, it won't have the grip it had on before. You don't need to change anything.
But do we need to try to fight with this stuff?
See, he can't hear what I said because of some distortion he's listening through. Can you see that? He was, over here in his thing. That's a distortion. Go ahead. Come on. Say it again.
I saw that you said that we don't need to follow this. I
Can you
understood.
talk up so the microphone on the camera? Yeah, you don't want to be heard, do you?
Yeah.
Well, somebody else might have this distortion that you're talking about. It's important for them to get it.
Okay. I understood that. I think that I understood that we need to, I don't know, to know when it already listening is working in our minds or in minds of other persons.
Yeah. Well, you have a distortion. We're human beings. We all have an already always listening distortion. You do. You're human. Sorry, but you got one. You don't need to resist it. The thing to do is to see what it is. Then it's not a distortion anymore. It's like I'm looking in a mirror, right? It's kind of entertaining that you're looking in that mirror. But if you're looking in that mirror and you're thinking that's the truth about how I look, that's a distortion. So to know that it's a distortion gives you power. All right? To illustrate this, I know, already always listening, if when you are driving and you know to turn right at the next corner, if your passenger says, turn right at the next corner, you're likely to be defensive. You're likely to defensively blurt out, I know. Yeah, good, that's excellent. Even though letting the passenger know that you know is irrelevant to anything other than defending your already always listening that I know.
I know.
I know. He knows that. The entire need to say I know comes from I know being already always in your listening. It's not that you're thinking I know, it's that who you are is I know. And when someone says something that occurs for you as a challenge to who you are, you respond defensively. Got it? In a sense, you are your perceptual constraints. Already always listening is one of our perceptual constraints. We are asking you to consider yourself as a listening. That is to say, your already always listening is a part of who you are, who you wound up being. And there's no possibility beyond what you already always are, who you wound up being, until you own what you already always are. You don't need to write, you have the whole textbook.
Yeah, I know.
But you would just want to underline it, huh?
Yeah, it's easier for me.
Make sure you get it right, okay. See, you could already always be, I have to get this right. So it makes you write it down. That's already always listening. Her actions are correlated to her already always listening, and so, you know, I don't know, is it I have to get it right or I have to know or what? I can't forget. What's
It's
your...
like easier for me when I, for example, want to say somebody what I have heard today in the lesson, and it will be easier for me to like see some plan because it's just like some words. So and to remain.
So your already always listening is what?
I don't know.
It's easier for me if it's fresh.
It's easier for me if it is in a copybook if I have forgot something, and if there is 1,000 pages, it will be hard for me to find the same word which I am looking for.
Okay.
And when I know that I wrote it, so it's easier
Right.
way.
Yeah, okay. That's part of your already always listening. Yeah, Lexi doesn't have that. He has another one. If I need it, I'll go look it up, or I don't need to know it, you know, whatever it is. All right. Already always listening also filters what we hear. Most of us have an already always listening of, it's not my fault, or I'm not to blame. It is a listening most of us develop in our childhood. While as adults, we know that it is possible for it to be our fault, or that we are to blame, and while we may not actively be thinking it's not our fault, or that we are not to blame, who we are is, it's not my fault, and I'm not to blame. As a consequence, when something goes wrong, and there is any discussion about who's to blame, we listen with the filter of, it's not my fault, and I'm not to blame. If it starts to look like it might be us, this listening causes us to generate rationalizations and justifications for what happened, rather than simply looking at what happened. And if it turns out that we can't escape blame, this listening often leaves us upset and with an unexpressed feeling of resentment. So you know when we went through that promise thing, right? You probably noticed yourself in this already always listening. Well, I didn't do it, it's not my fault. Or wanting to escape that. And if you didn't, you can notice other people. It wasn't like, well, I just didn't do it. All right, already always listening leaves us defensive. Most of us have an already always listening of I'm right, or for sure I'm not wrong. As a consequence, when something challenges what we think or believe, we are often unable to consider this other view as a real possibility, and to examine it as though it might be right. Or worse yet, that we might actually be wrong. We get defensive. And if it turns out that we can't escape the validity of this other view, or that we're actually wrong, this listening often leaves us upset and with an unexpressed feeling of resentment. The almost universal listening prompted geneticist J.B.S. Haldane to say, new ideas have 4 stages of acceptance. 1, this is worthless nonsense. 2, this is an interesting but perverse point of view. Do you know what perverse is?
No.
Do you know the word perverted? Twisted. Twisted. This isn't twisted. But twisted in a kind of bad way. This is. In the U.S., it's often used in conjunction with some sexual something. Like a child, an older person who sexually abuses a child is a slang, a pervert.
Okay.
He's perverted. So I wasn't going to say this because it's not it's not a particularly nice thing, but that's where the word in English is used a lot, and it's a little bit slang and pejorative to say the person is perverted. You're usually talking about some sexual distortion that they have. So be careful when you use the word perverted. The person's going to listen to like you're talking about a sexual distortion. Okay? But they're not using that here. This is an intellectual use of the word perverse, and they're not using the word perverted. It's a little bit different word, perverse. This is an interesting but perverse point of view. 3, this is true but quite unimportant. And 4, I always said so. Already always listening prevents recreating what is said. This is a new term of art, recreating. Already always listening is a term of art too. For a final, virtually universal example of already always listening, we all listen with a certain question already present in our listening. Which question is constantly present as we listen? And this question is, do you agree or do I disagree with what's being said? Let me do that again. Do I agree or do I disagree with what's being said? Or is it right or is it wrong? Or is it true or is it false? You can imagine the consequences of this listening. It is as though when someone is speaking, we are under our breath saying to ourselves over and over as they are speaking, do I agree or disagree? Do I agree or disagree? This do I agree or disagree already always listening displaces the possibility of simply getting what is being said, exactly as it is said, without adding any judgment or evaluation to it. That is actually recreating in our listening what is said before considering the validity of what is being said. Got that? Already always listening gets in the way of being effective in correcting or adding to what is said. As a consequence of this agree or disagree, right or wrong listening, we usually miss some of what is said, and at least a part of what is said will be distorted for us. If in fact what we hear does require correction or is valid but can be enhanced because we have not faithfully recreated what it is to be corrected or contributed to exactly as it was said, we are less able to be clear and effective in attempting to make the correction or contribution. Because you didn't hear the whole thing. Do you want me to give that paragraph to you again? Did you get it?
Reread it.
All right. If in fact what we hear does require correction or is valid but can be enhanced, because we've not faithfully recreated what it is to be corrected or contributed to exactly as it was said, we are less able to be clear and effective in attempting to make the correction or contribution. In other words, if you're not present to everything that's being said, and you can't respond to everything that's being said.
It's just like thinking in an abstract way or something like that.
Well, no, it's more like thinking it all while someone else is talking.
Okay.
If you're thinking, judging, evaluating the validity of what somebody is saying, if this is right or wrong, right? Do I agree with it or not? Whatever it is that you're doing while that person is speaking doesn't recreate what is being said over there. So then, if it needs to be enhanced or corrected, you're ineffective at it because you didn't even hear what was there because you're busy seeing if you agree with it or not. You got it?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it. You got it that time. Okay. All right. To be a leader and to exercise leadership effectively, you must be masterful in empowering others to see for themselves actual errors in their thinking, and masterful in enhancing their valid thinking. This is literally impossible if you listen with, do I agree or do I disagree with what is being said? Or is what is being said right or wrong or true or false? Yeah. The impact of attempting to lead in the distorted reality of already always listening. So you can see that they're in the middle. The mess you are in. Reasons, justification, excuses, and rationalizations for any misinterpretations, frustrations, ineffectiveness, or inefficiencies that are actually a product of a reality distorted by an already always listening. Right? That's the mess you're in the middle. And around it is, I already know, I know better. Is this right, true, or false? What's in it for me? What am I getting out of this? I agree, disagree. It's not my fault. I'm not to blame. I'm the leader. I'm the boss. I'm in charge. What you should do, what you shouldn't do, what I know that they should do, what they shouldn't have done, what you're really up to, what do they really mean? What do they really mean by saying that? Whether or not you like it or dislike it, if you're busy, what's your point? Hurry up. I believe it or disbelieve it. Who's right? Who's wrong? Is that right or wrong? You know, that's just a few of the things, right? It just goes on and on. So the mood, atmosphere for human beings is resigned and cynical. Right there. Okay. Identify your already always listening. The question is, what is the already always listening that you are? See if you can find it yourself in any of the following. Right? We said all that stuff. I'm not going to repeat all of it. See if you can find yourself in any of that. Can you find yourself there? Yeah, right. Right, here's more of it. Right? You can. Here's a new one. Are you going to hurt me? Are you going to take advantage of me?
No.
Are you telling me the truth? What are they really up to? You're not going to tell me what to do, are you?
You're talking nonsense.
Huh?
You're talking nonsense.
You're talking nonsense. Tell me what to do. What's the answer? I want the answer. Give me the answer. All right. You're already always listening for other nationalities, other cultures, other religions, men, women, younger than you, older than you, more knowledgeable than you, less knowledgeable than you, developed as part of your family as contrasted with other families. Individuals and groups about whom you have a judgment, evaluation, opinion, or prejudice. What is the already always listening imposed by your field of expertise or profession? Right? Your expertise and profession imposes some things. Your family, your gender, what you read in a magazine. All right, you are already always listening, waiting to happen. Whatever you're already always listening, it shapes the way people and things show up for you. For example, if my already always listening is, you don't understand me, then I become, you don't understand me, waiting to happen. Or if my already always listening is, do you respect me? Or do you disrespect me? Then I'm likely to be oversensitive to anything said that might in any way indicate some question of your respecting or disrespecting me. Then I become, you don't respect me, do you? Waiting to happen. I'm glad you're entertained by this. It is kind of entertaining. All right, so here, look, we made it to page 100. See that? 100. I have to move it in order for you to see it up in the left-hand corner. All right, so this, how much time do we have?
8 minutes.
18 minutes?
8.
8. Wow, okay. So this would be the assignment that they would have given, that was given to me when I did this course. And I suggest that you take it on. Right? Come back to class ready to share with us a few of your already always listenings. Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
It's our homework.
What?
It's our homework.
Yeah, well, this is the assignment.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to do the course, this would be what there is to do. This is what I did.
Do it fast.
We went on a break. We had 30 minutes. We got some tea and we ate some junk food. And then we talked to each other about, well, what's our already always listening? Look for those. You're going to have a week. You've already identified it while you're sitting here, haven't you? Right? This is not rocket science. But this would be the homework. And tell us in what way your listenings are likely to limit your effectiveness of being a leader. Do this assignment by finishing the following sentence for at least a few of your already always listening. So you did write down, my already always listening is, what's one of yours? What did you identify?
Okay. I need to think a minute.
You just said it. So
Yeah.
did it leave already?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does that. It really does do that. Yeah, well, you can go, you have this. They're
You
in
will
here.
send us this stuff.
No, we can find this in the internet.
Huh?
We can find this all.
It's in the textbook. I gave you the link. Do you want me to send you the link again?
But the link is not working or something like
It
that.
works.
No,
It works just like you need to delete.
I'll show.
Okay.
It's a paper. You download the
Yeah.
paper. He'll show you, right? All right. 2. If you construct a statement for each of your already listings in that way, something gets unconcealed for you that doesn't get unconcealed when you tell your story about it. At first, you may not like what you discover in your already always listening. Yet the more looking you do, the more you begin to see. To give yourself the power to keep digging, keep in mind that the more of your already always listening you distinguish and own, the more freedom you will experience in being a leader and
Exercising your where it is.
And-
Exercise leadership effectively.
that's it.
I remember.
Right.
I didn't find it, but I remember.
As a consequence, you will have the listening required to be a leader who can make things happen with and through others, and that is what you came here to get. But it requires you to see the already always listening that's there.
What's that?
Got that?
Yeah.
Choose a partner to work with. You use the same partner that you just I assigned, okay? Or you assign yourselves, right? Okay, if you go to the side, blah, blah, blah. All right, so break. We're on a break. This is where we'll resume. Cool? Anybody have anything you want to, how much, do we have any time left?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Anybody want to say anything? How about what if, what's it like? Yes.
No,
Since I understood our already always listening cannot change often.
Can you're already always listening change?
Yes.
You mean can you change it once you identify?
When I, for example, when I speak with one person, I think in this way.
Yes.
In another person, I think in
Yes, yes. With your family, you can have a different, you can be, don't tell me what to do, is always there. And with your friends, it could be, I know. Why don't you tell me something new? I knew that. Yeah, so yeah.
So we need to identify this always
The more you,
listening and try to,
the more you identify it, the more power.
You gain.
but just identify, not just put aside.
Huh?
Try to identify only, yes? Not put
No,
aside.
you don't need to put it aside. No, just let it be there, and it will let you be there.
We need to identify it only in our minds or in other person.
In yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where
So
the
you
power
are
is.
not analyzing me now, yes. You are always listening, yeah?
What? I'm not like you?
No. I'm asking if I need to analyze people.
No,
with
just
their
do
own-
your first. You'll be able to see theirs once you see yours.
Yeah, because
Because
I know.
you're so busy, we're so busy with our own, we can't see how what we say is listened to because we're busy over here. So we don't know what our speaking's going into. And it leaves you powerless as a leader or causing anything you want to cause in your life. Because your speaking is going into a listening. But you can't see it because you have your own going on. But once you see as many as you possibly can see about your own, then you'll actually be present and hear what people are saying. You don't have to defend it, agree with it. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just let it be there for what it's worth and then see.
Something like Dale Carnegie said.
Dale Carnegie?
And you're doing that already, always
Yes,
listening,
that's
right?
already always listening to stick. That's good.
It's something like that, it's something like Buddhism or something like
Yes,
that.
this
I agree
like
with
something,
that.
yeah, but that's,
But it's my human being, so.
that's you're already always listening.
But I need to know that it is.
You need to know that it is.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
And
but it is part of your already always
Yeah.
listening. Your already always listening is, and this is everybody's, is this like something I know before? That's already always listening. What is it like? What is this? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an already always listening. This must be like something. I wonder what it's like. And so then you don't hear what it is because you're listening through that thing.
So and once we identify this already listening, we can use it to be successful.